There's a fly in here. Go away. Hello. It's me again. AKA Lily, AKA @NotFinSmiley on Instagram. In my first video, so exciting, I know, I tried to showcase my progress on one of my latest cosplays, my Toki Fukawa costume from Danganronpa. I mean the characters from Danganronpa. The costume is too, I guess, but so I started off by showing you how I made the underskirt that was to be worn under this costume and any other costume that I ever needed it to be worn under. Well, what a sentence. Congratulations me. So, today, we're gonna be working on the second layer. The overskirt. I always liked making skirts, weirdly, since they're really easy to do and you can get amazing results with just few frustrations and little effort. So it enables me to get into some sort of meditative trance really quickly. I do enjoy that very much. I also just really like flowy fabrics for some reason. And it's so weird because it's not really what I wear in my day-to-day life. So, this one is an almost floor-length pleated skirt, therefore a bit harder to make than a ruffled one from before. The concept is still the same though. We're going to take a long piece of fabric, shorten one edge by folds or, ruffles, as we did with the other one, and have it fit tight on top but be flowy near the edge, like in a triangular shape. It is incredibly important that you work correctly and precisely, even more so than with other sewing projects, since every mistake will show in your pleats later. As with the underskirt, I always cut and zigzag along the seams for cleanup, pin stuff right on right unless specifically stated otherwise, and you should also always work with seam allowance. Also similarly to the other skirt, you'll need a long rectangular piece of fabric and a smaller strap for the waistband. What you can see here are 4 meters of fabric with a width of 140. We will obviously shorten the hem later on, even though a huge day would have been really cool. And it later turned out that I wouldn't need all of it to fit my waist, but I wanted to be safe rather than sorry. So this is probably the most important step in making a pleated skirt. Actually making the pleats. I know. Shocking. Before we can actually make the pleats, we'll have to mark them off on our fabric. I laid my cut fabric out down flat and aligned my tape measure with it. I then marked off my folds. There's 2 measurements to take into consideration here. First is the depth of your fold. This is the fabric that will later be tucked in away within the fold. The width. This is the amount of fabric that will later be seen on the outside. My measure was, I think, 7 for depth and 4 for width. Something along those lines. I know I had almost double the amount for depth than I had for width. So either 6 and 3 or 7 and 4 or 3.5, something like that. You can adjust that to whatever skirt you'd want to make and have bigger or smaller pleats. Now it's pleating time. This is pretty much what we're gonna do instead of ruffling this time. It's a little hard to describe, I feel like, but I'm gonna try anyways. Please look at the video segment for further clarity. Fold the segment you marked off as full depth in half. You should now automatically have what you've marked off as width lay on top of it. Pin it. Do that with all of your folds until you're done. This is again very time consuming, but I find it to be really relaxing for some reason, other than ruffling, which is just exhausting. Then take a moment to freak out over how cool this looks. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go into pleated skirt mask protection, but I also feel like I'd never wear it and I wouldn't really know what to do with the other ones, so maybe not. Iron those pleats flat so that they'll stay in position when you sew them on. Then do exactly that. Sew them on. Sew along the folded edge to secure the pleats. Next thing we're gonna do is the side seam. But wait, there's more. Since I put a zipper in this one, we're only gonna pin and sew up half of the side seam. I'm not sure how long my zipper was. I've gotten a huge bag of leftovers from my grandmother a while back, so whenever I need something I first look in there. That's what I did for the zipper as well. It's a really nice way of lowering costs on cosplay or just keeping them down altogether. So plan out your materials ahead and see if you can reuse things, or if you can just find leftovers that might be fitting for what you're doing next. So I pinned on the zipper, then pinned the rest of the side down to later put into the side seam. Zippers are a little tricky, but weirdly they're one of my favourite things to sew. So what you want to do, you want to fold in your fabric edges and pin them onto each side of the zipper. I usually open the zipper for that as well, since it's a lot easier to work with a little space in between, but it's up to you. Then sew the side seam up to where your zipper starts. Sew in the zipper. Again, zippers are a little tricky, so sewing machines usually come with a specific foot, you know, the tiny little metal thing that you strap onto your machine down there. So down there, that you strap onto your machine so it keeps the fabric down and kind of leads the needle. I should describe stuff for a living. Anyways, I didn't use mine. Shh. You remember, don't tell grandma. So shame on me. But since I'm usually quite good at zippers, I know. I'm the zipper queen. Probably shouldn't talk like this, because if I fail at a zipper one day, I'll never be able to overcome it. Okay. So I didn't use my zipper foot because I find it way too much work to just switch them out. Like, in the time I've looked for it, switched it out, and then redid everything, I could just sew on the zipper. You know, it's just So I just went ahead with it and did my thing. Don't be me. Don't. Especially if you're a beginner, don't be me. What's important is that you don't get the zipper's teeth caught up under your needle. As soon as there's some fabric or like thread caught up in there, your zipper is basically useless, so you're gonna have to get a new one and start over. It's time to do the waistband. Way too enthusiastic about this. Anyways, since there is not gonna be a hard-ish elastic in there this time to keep it, to help it keep its form. Now, since there's not going to be any hard-ish elastic in there to help it keep its form, we're going to have to do a little special something before sewing. So I cut out some fleece interfacing and ironed it on. To those of you who are unfamiliar, this is a specific kind of fabric that'll reinforce your pieces and give them some form. It's usually put into collars or waistbands to make them hold up better. It has some sort of glue, I think, on one side, like, I'm not sure, so please don't quiz me on textile science, because I have no idea, but it has this sort of sticky stuff on one side that will activate when heated up, when warmed up, and therefore will stick to the fabric. I noticed that my waistband was way too long, so you'll always want it to be a little longer than your waist size so that you can add like a button and a buttonhole to close it up, because your zipper will only go up to where the actual main part of the skirt ends, and then there's the waistband on top of that. It doesn't need to be like twice your waist size or anything, it just needs to be like a little piece, a little protruding piece. So I cut off the excess. It's always good to test out whether or not your garment will actually fit sporadically during the process. I then also folded the waistband in half and ironed that flat. Next, I just closed the shorter ends of the waistband and cleaned them up. You'll notice we're doing things a little bit differently this time. Pin one side of this incredibly long pocket that you've just created onto the skirt and sew it on. Fold it over, then tuck the edge in, pin it, and sew it on again. Try to stay close to the first seam so that it does not show too much. It doesn't really matter with this one since it's all in black and you won't really notice, but especially if you're working with a patterned fabric again, or you know, you're kind of using a different coloured thread. I sometimes do that just for highlighting, because sometimes it looks cool. Like, you know, with jeans with denim where you have golden sort of thread in the seams. Yeah, something like that. But I also added some little hooks to the protruding end instead of using a button. Toko's costume doesn't really seem to have one, so it felt a little flashy to add one on. So, you know, this seemed like a cool, covert, alternative version to just close up the waist properly. You should probably lay them out first and pin them on as to not sew them on the wrong way. But, you know, it doesn't really matter if you do, because it's very easy to just cut open the seams and do it again. I'm also afraid you're gonna have to do this part by hand. I'm really sorry, but you just have to. I then shortened the hem. The original piece of fabric was way too long. I cut into the fabric and then, well, tore the unnecessary fabric right off. Don't do this unless you're really, really, really extremely sure what you're doing. Which I'm usually not. I just remembered. Doesn't matter. It's okay. You'll also always want to leave on a few centimeters extra, because you're going to tuck them in later when hemming. I always keep excess and leftover fabric, especially if it's that much, in case I might use it later for other projects. You know, even if it's just for some small details or little patches. Stop. Hemming time. Oh god. Why did I do this? I wrote this out. Like, I wrote this out on a piece of paper. Okay, but seriously, hemming time. You'll want to fold over the edge of your fabric twice and pin it on like that. This is harder than it seems, and usually very time consuming. A lot of garments go unhemmed until it's absolutely and definitely time to hem, since I don't really like doing it. But, you know, it's still worth it. It's still a hobby I enjoy, so I'll still do it. I'll soldier on. I then iron it so that it'll stay flat for sewing. So, Toko's skirt has those white stripes along the bottom as well as on her shirt. I got a lot of lace in that big bag of leftover sewing supplies that my grandmother gave me, and I found this really cute little heart lace in there amongst it. So, it seemed like a perfect fit, like there was so much left over of it. Since Toko is the ultimate romance novelist, something like that. I think it's the ultimate romance novelist, right? Yeah. Hi, this is me. So since Toko is, you know, a romance writer, it just felt like a really fitting thing to use. I really like altering cosplays like this. Like, it may not fit with the original image of the character 100%, but it feels very individualistic and me to do it. I can be a little bit creative and add something more and just make the whole thing better in the process. It's also like I'm a big fan of details and like thought out stuff. It's so hard to describe, but I really like it when people put a lot of thought into things. And this is one of those little details you probably won't notice unless you're really close and you can see it or you know about it. So, you know, I myself like looking for stuff like that, so I also like putting it on projects. I can't really explain it, it just makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. I added 2 rows of the lace, pinned them onto the flat laying fabric, and then sewed them on with white thread. You may or may not have noticed that in those little snippets right now, I hadn't done the side seam yet. It was a bit hard for me to piece back together how I did things since it's been a time since I filmed it. I remember that I did the hem twice since I had to shorten it later. So for the sake of understanding and clarity, I decided to cut it out and just streamline the video a little. I also decided to put the sequences in the order that I usually make a skirt like that. It's a bit weird, but I just try to make it a little clearer since it's supposed to be some sort of, it's not really supposed to be a tutorial, but I want people to just make their own if they're feeling like it, you know? I remember changing it up a little since I wanted to pin the lace on a flat surface, but it's doable after putting the skirt together as well. Just, you know, it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to put in that little disclaimer just for clarity's sake. So, there's your skirt. It's all done. So, thank you so much for watching the second part of this little series. I hope I was able to explain it all nicely and you got a good look into my messy, I'll agree, but into my process. Please leave your feedback down below. I appreciate tips and tricks and getting to know your own little routine as well. In case you want to see the whole costume assembled, please have a look at my Instagram at MuffinSmiley or my other social media accounts. I will of course leave them down below. Next time, we will tackle a top. Until then, stay healthy, drink some water, and have a beautiful day.